Well, I'll provide a few beef industry statistics as well, and then I want to talk a little bit about meat marketing, more specifically beef marketing. So, as a kind of a 50,000-foot overview of our beef industry and the importance to the region, I want to start out with kind of an overview of America. Today, we would have an inventory of about 37, 38 million cattle on ranches. So think an old Western movie that you might have seen, cows and calves out on the range. That's the bulk of our crop. That's where they start, out on a pasture and an environment much like you might see in an old Western. In addition, everybody in here probably is familiar with milk, fluid milk, and you like milk consumption. I'll say a product of that milk consumption is also the dairy calf. So think of a Holstein calf or a Jersey calf. They're also a big part of our beef supply, and we have about 14 million dairy cows in our inventory today. So it's not just the old romantic ranch that we might think about. Our milk supply is also a big contributor to our beef supply. So another ranch that you might think of if you drive up and down the road and you see cattle out in a pasture would be what you see right here. We move the weaned calf out of its original environment in most cases, and we sell it in the market to a secondary operator. And this person is what we call a stalker operator in the beef industry. And they're going to take the weaned calf, and those would be shown here, without their mother, and they're going to grow that animal on a forage operation. So in the upper left picture, that's native range grass, warm season grass, like you might see green in the summertime. And in the lower right, that's wheat pasture. So one of the many ways in which we utilize the crop is to plant the wheat in the early fall. In this area that would be planted in August and September. And that crop will grow, and in about November through March, we'll put calves on it. Those calves will eat that green forage, and that's a means of utilizing that crop in more than one manner. So the calves will eat that all through the winter, and they'll grow and convert that leaf into muscle and fat tissue. And then later in March, those calves will be removed from that. That crop will finish growing, and then we'll cut wheat from the head. So that's a means in which the agricultural industry utilizes that crop in two manners. In total, there's not quite 17 million cattle that are estimated to believe in that segment of our industry today. When they're grown to a marketable weight, they're going to move to a feedlot. And I've got multiple pictures here to kind of get you to thinking about what a feedlot is. We have a lot in our region, but you might not be familiar with what we're doing. From an aerial perspective, this is kind of what a feedlot looks like. And you can think of every one of these pens as an ownership unit. So you might own a pen of cattle at the feedlot, and they might be all of the cattle from your ranch, or they might be cattle that you purchase from multiple ranches. And so they're little miniature ranches at a feedlot, if you will, and they're ownership units. And the cattle can come up to the bunk, and they can leave the bunk, and they can go to the water, or they can go mingle with other cattle. And in reality, they're going to spend about a third of the day eating, about a third of the day ruminating, and about a third of the day resting and relaxing. And this picture in the upper right, that's kind of the kitchen of the whole operation. If you're driving by, you'll see a mill. And fundamentally, that's just a big kitchen. So we're going to make their diet in a feedlot on a regular basis, and they'll typically get fed 3 times a day. And I would say, in contrast to my diet, for sure, and your diet most likely, their diet is very tightly controlled by a ruminant nutritionist. And you would think of that as someone that is the ruminant or cattle version of a registered dietitian. Their diet is, in almost all instances, much better than mine, and probably better than yours as well, because it's extremely balanced for all the nutrients they need to grow. And then we're going to get to my specialty, and that's the packer segment. And we call ourselves the feedlot capital of the world, and not that Hereford and the Texas Panhandle is not feedlot capital, but something that's not as widely touted as we're also the slaughter capital of the world. It just doesn't come off the tongue the same. So we have a large capacity for harvest in the Panhandle. You'll see in the lower left-hand corner, 121,000 cattle per day. So that's in the entire country, 121,000. And locally, we're at about 20,500 per day. So we're a large portion of the slaughter that takes place in the country. And there's a harvest picture in the upper left, carcasses hanging in the cooler in the lower left. And then this is what a grader will look at when they're evaluating the carcass for prime, choice, select, standard, the quality grades that we market. And then at the end, the cuts will be broken down into smaller pieces. They'll be put into boxes, shipped all over the country and all over the world. All right. So just a little quick market analysis and value. Today's animal, on average, walks into the slaughterhouse at 1,340 pounds. It's worth $1.26 a pound, or about $1,700 each. So there's a relatively large investment in each animal. The carcass is 800 pounds. We get about $123 of byproducts. Anybody own anything leather? Have leather seats, a leather belt, leather shoes, purse, etc. Leather is the #1 byproduct of an animal. I will say there's been some significant change in the recent year. In fundamentally all of past history, the hide was worth about $100 in a raw form as it was removed from the animal. Today that's about $40. And the reason is probably around here somewhere. I don't know if I see it. How many of you own a pair of tennis shoes? Okay, I did see this young lady has white leather tennis shoes on. Thank you for supporting the beef industry. I'll say that I have 2 pair of tennis shoes at home, neither of which are supporting the beef industry because they're made of polyester and nylon. And as we've shifted away from leather tennis shoes to polyester and nylon tennis shoes, the value of hides has fallen in less than half of what it was about a year or more ago. In addition to that, there's all sorts of other byproducts that are part of that animal. Every day we produce about 72, 73 million pounds of beef, and that is just a little bit more than 1/5 of a pound per person per day in this country. However, the actual value is less than that because we ship 15% away, as Dr. Angus clearly indicated. And here's where that product goes. Our #1 trade partner for beef is Japan. #2, South Korea, then you see Mexico. #4 is a little bit of a curiosity because it says Hong Kong, parentheses, China, and then Canada. So if you look at Hong Kong, it's a small island. And if you do the math, you would think, wow, those people eat a lot of beef. Like, they eat more than their body weight in beef, frequently. In reality, the beef is sold to Hong Kong and it is imported into China in what we call a gray market. And so you'll find American beef and other proteins all across China, even though it wasn't sold directly to China. It's a market that ends up there. In total, about $8.3 billion is exported to all countries across the globe, those being the top 5. In addition, we're also importing tremendous amounts of beef. This stuff that we export is primarily 2 things. #1, it's very high quality meats. Think prime, certified Angus beef, highly marbled, highly sought after meats and beef for persons that can afford it in all of those countries. In contrast, the other big thing we export are offal products. How many of you are big tongue, liver, sweet bread, stomach, intestine eaters? I saw 2 hands go up. Not many. And you don't see a lot of that in our retail markets. So we ship very high quality meats and we ship very, I won't say low quality, offal products to other countries. We also import almost the same volume of meat. Technically, we're a net exporter this year. But we import a ton of meats to supply our craving for hamburgers. Yeah. So many cull cows in Australia, Argentina, Guatemala, Costa Rica, we buy that lean beef from the cull cow. We bring it here, blend it into products that we already have here, and we sell it as hamburgers. America has a fascination with hamburgers, tacos, other products that need lean ground meat. And so we're a net importer of lean ground meat because we don't produce enough. And I'm going to switch into marketing a little bit for the rest of this. And I want to start with traditional beef marketing and then move into more recent and vogue marketing. So if I go to the store today, I can buy USDA Prime, Choice, or Select. Some of you know exactly what that is. Some of you probably have no idea what that is. And that's a very important marketing point between our feedlots and our meat processors. And there's value associated with every one of those terms. Those are lesser and lesser and lesser meaningful to today's consumer. I'll tell you that Prime is the pinnacle of our quality system. Choice is kind of standard everyday product. And Select is a leaner product. And each of those has a unique market, but the terms don't mean what they did to your parents and your grandparents. So beef marketers figured out, hey, we need to brand this product. And we need to market it in such a way that we can attract consumers who aren't just looking for that term Prime, Choice, or Select. And the most famous and well-known of those is shown up here in our upper left corner. You might have heard of Certified Angus beef. That's a product that was promoted and still is housed today as part of the American Angus Association. And it is meant to brand the Angus product. I will say that that has worked fantastically well, arguably the most sought-after brand in beef and the best beef marketing program ever. Such that many other breeds that were traditionally red-haired cattle have allowed black genetics in to change their hide color to black, which is one of 10 specifications to be sold as a Certified Angus beef brand. After that, some other packers thought, you know, this is working very well for Certified Angus beef and the American Angus Association, so we're going to do the same thing. And that's shown right here. Sterling Silver is a brand owned by Cargill. You might have heard of Cargill. We have a local Cargill facility in Freona, Texas. They said, you know what, we're having some fantastic success selling this Certified Angus beef brand, but there are some cattle that are not black. And they meet all of these other criteria. They just happen to be red or tan or gray or striped or spotted. We're going to take that one criteria off. We're going to keep the other 9, and we're going to call ours Sterling Silver. And it worked. People said, yeah, we like that product. It eats well, has great palatability. We'll come back and buy it again and again. That worked well for Cargill. A couple of years later, Tyson says, hey, we're selling a ton of this Certified Angus beef product, and this other thing is working well for Cargill. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to call ours Chairman's Reserve. And it worked well for Tyson. And then a few years later, JBS said, hey, this is working well for Certified Angus beef and Cargill and Tyson. We're going to call ours 1855. And so this has just exploded. From one brand in 1978 to 93 today. Some of this is extremely recognizable, like Certified Angus beef. Some of these you may not have heard of. Anybody even know who this guy is? Nolan Ryan. He has his own brand of beef. You will not find it in a market in the Texas Panhandle. Every one of these animals is fed in Palmer County, Texas. Every one of these animals is slaughtered in Freona, Texas. You won't find this product because it doesn't market well to our consumer. All of this fundamentally is sold in South Texas, and it sells like gangbusters. If I go to Washington, you can find St. Helens beef boxes everywhere. It all comes out of one feedlot, it goes to one slaughterhouse, and it markets well in Washington State, Oregon, and Idaho. You won't find any in the Texas Panhandle. Hereford beef, they tried the same thing the Certified Angus beef tried. It's never caught on, and it's still a fledgling branded beef product, if you will. You can find some Certified Texas beef, and another local product, if you'll do some perusing on the internet, you can discover more about Heart brand beef. It's also a locally produced product, sells in very high quality restaurants. A more recent iteration of beef marketing is what I like to call criteria beef. And this is typically promoted on a single criteria. I'm going to move this cursor here so you can see that. So up in the upper left-hand corner, Nathan's Famous Beef Franks, the #1 brand of hot dog available, Nathan's Famous Beef. You notice this little seal. It says Angus, made with 100% Angus beef because they just taste better. So here's the reality. All of those cattle had a black hair coat. The legal definition in meat marketing of Angus is a black hair coat. Actually, it's a 51% black hair coat. So there's some marketing involved here, right? And this is a marketing presentation. So that's what that is. Over here, American Heart Association. Marketing to an elderly audience who are looking for a heart-healthy product, probably because their physician recommended them to eat a low-fat diet. Products that carry that check are 97% fat-free. And so that's marketed to that consumer. Lower left, you see genuine Texas beef. The marketing to Texas consumers. The reality is those animals were fed for 100 days in a Texas feedlot, slaughtered in a Texas slaughterhouse. Genuine Texas beef. Could have been born in any state, could have been stalkered in any state, but they were here for 100 days. And over here, Hebrew National. This is a unique product marketed to the Jewish community. Okay? If you're buying this product, I don't know that I can see it, you're probably looking for a triangle K that will appear on the package, telling you that that product was certified as kosher by the Union of Orthodox Congregations, and it is fit for consumption. The other interesting part about that, you'll notice it's kind of in the slogan here, made from premium cuts of 100% kosher beef. The kosher community only eats the forequarter of an animal. They will not eat the hindquarter of an animal unless it has been completely deveined. That is a very laborious process, and so the rest of us end up eating the hindquarters because it's too labor intense to be economically feasible. A little more marketing, a little more contemporary and very vogue today is all natural beef. And I've got 3 labels up here that all meet the legal definition but mean completely different things to the actual consumer. So over here is the legal definition of an all-natural product. One that contains no added ingredients and are minimally processed. That's the USDA legal definition of all-natural. And this product in the upper right corner would meet that today. Harris Ranch beef, that would be kind of a standard label for them. USDA certified natural black Angus beef. Fundamentally, all animals that are black hair coat could carry that label if they wanted to. The label in the middle, Nature Well beef, is promoted by National Beef, a slaughterhouse of 2, not far from here, one in Liberal, Kansas, one in Dodge City, Kansas. That label technically means the animal did not receive an antibiotic or a growth-promoting hormone in the last 120 days they were in the feedlot. So they could have received it at day 121, but they didn't receive it in the last 120. And they get to carry that label. Now this one on the far left is probably what most people think is natural, an animal that never received an antibiotic or growth-promoting hormone at any point during its life. What we would call a never-ever program. So one thing I want you to realize in beef marketing is there are many iterations of what actually happened in contrast to what the consumer may or may not have thought happened. And that's just part of the marketing system. We have 2 more that I want to cover very quickly. What we call NHTC cattle, cattle that never received a growth promotant at any point during their life, non-hormone treated cattle. That was originally promoted by Country Natural Beef, a farmer to consumer program that started out in Oregon with Doc and Connie Hatfield. It was later picked up as part of a marketing program to the European Union, NHTC cattle. And you might have heard of Chipotle, Mexican restaurants. They also promote this as part of their branding of their products. We have organic beef, a very, very thin market because the animals must be fed organic ingredients. And the crops to certify as organic are somewhat difficult and very inefficient. And so that's quite a thin market, predominantly only in grass-finished animals. And then the last one is a grass finish label itself. And this is probably one of the more interesting ones. In reality, USDA 2 years ago retracted this as an official label because they were not able to certify it and or oversee it because of the multiple iterations in which this was occurring and the questionableness of how this was being marketed. So a little bit about beef marketing. With that, I don't know how many minutes we have left, but I think Dr. Amos and I would be glad to take any questions.
Yeah, wonderful.